Thanks for checking out Higher Ed Athletics presented by Pilotics. This conversation is something that I don't think you would anticipate because this athletic director, Justin Sell, the head of the Jackrabbits, one of my favorite three mascots in the country. And I just have to say, I even missed one name in prepping for this. He is basically creating his own athletic director tree here recently. So we're going to hear that at the beginning of the conversation. They've had a lot of success, but they're also a lot of challenges in FCS. How do you stay at a school this long and still be winning and keeping people happy? We talk about donor fatigue, all this type of stuff that I think is really important. And then about towards the end, he goes into depth about a very in depth about coaching hires and his process, even beginning whenever he thinks there might be someone that is leaving or interviewing for a job, and then what his protocol is. You'll learn a lot from this episode. Justin Sell is a great athletic director, South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. Thank you for listening and watching Higher Ed Athletics presented by Pilotics. Welcome to Higher Ed Athletics. Today I'm joined by Justin Sell, the athletic director at South Dakota State. Justin, thanks for being on Higher Ed Athletics.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I always thought the Jackrabbits, one of the coolest mascot names. And the other one is Blue Hens. So they're both blue and yellow. So, it's a cool logo. But thanks for representing the Jackrabbits today. I want to talk first about this athletic director tree. It's why, I always knew about South Dakota State from being working at Indiana State. But, you've produced three athletic directors, I guess you'd say, from your tree of branches that have gone out. So Leon Costello, Montana State, Slade, Larscheid at recently Ohio, and then Nathan Christensen at Indiana State. So I kind of want to go through those guys. Maybe just start with Nathan, of what made Nathan ready to be an AD at Indiana State, and what advice did you give him when he considered? I don't think Indiana State was his first attempt, but his first landing his first job there.
Yeah, I think first off, those each of those guys earned their opportunity, and I think what was great about them was they didn't come in and expect me to wave some magic wand and you make somebody an AD. You have to do those things and have to have the patience and gain experience and build capacity in those jobs. And eventually you're taking on more and more of those roles. You're taking on more and more of the day-to-day things that happen around our department. And so I'm really proud of them. They carved their own path and they earned that. So I don't really ever look at it as my tree or anything else. I think we have an environment that fosters the opportunity to grow and to be a good leader. And I think in Nathan's case, he has so much experience from the external side of the things that we do. He has a great understanding of how to market programs, how to get fans engaged. And he's a terrific fundraiser. He really knows how to make those connections. But it's Nathan's energy. He's got, it seems like endless energy. And so he has high ability to work long days and manage all those things and handle so many pieces that are the volume pieces while you're trying to build relationships or handle complex issues. And I think that's where he's such a perfect fit for Indiana State, because I think that energy and certainly working at a place where we've done some things on a revenue side that are probably different than most schools at our level. We have some opportunities in regards to capital projects and fundraising, and you had success too, that some of those things come out of that make them quality candidates. My only advice is always, I think when you look at a situation, and all three of these guys turned down other opportunities before they ultimately took the one they have, and being selective and making sure and we talk about fit, but it's about presidential leadership. It's about a vision of a place. Can you be successful? Can you generate some revenue? And in that process, trying to get a fit, because you're ultimately needing to talk to and sell a vision to a donor base or to a group of fans or alums or people on your campus or in your communities. And I think that's where, Nathan, and when you talk about getting the right fit, he's working for a tremendous president. Indiana State's got some things going. They have some successful programs. And he has the right kind of positivity, energy, can-do spirit that I think fits with what they were looking for at the time.
Yeah, he really came in there as the first hire of the new president, and I'd say they both kind of have the energy to match each other, which is helpful. You know, he did tell me two things. First, he said exactly what you said to start this: is he made you earn it. It wasn't given, and that's what Nathan, when I asked him about you before this. The other thing is he told me that he was nervous one time because he got a speeding ticket, and he ended up on the front page of the newspaper there in town or something. He came into a meeting and he was kind of nervous. Can you tell that story?
Well, I think living in a small town, we have our local paper that will put in stop sign violations and speeding tickets, and it was probably more in the traffic report section of the paper. But the point is, you're always on, and it doesn't matter what you do here. And so you get your name with your age put in the traffic violations section, and we might have had some fun calling it out a little bit.
Yeah, he told me going into the meeting, you kind of gave him a hard time about it. So, yeah, that was kind of funny. Okay, so Slade, Larscheid at Ohio. So this one, so thinking about fit, he's going from FCS to the top of the MAC really at a group of five school, and it's in a good place from an athletic department. Julie Cromer goes to be the number two at LSU. So I think that Slade's hire made sense to me when I look at fit, but like it maybe surprised some people, but a great opportunity. So what was kind of the similar thing that I asked you about Nathan? I mean, what do you think made Slade ready for that type of school in that situation?
Yeah, I think Slade was with me before and then left. He was the athletic director at Augustana University in Sioux Falls, so Division two. Then we had a chance to bring him back 6 years ago, and so when you look at his growth and where these guys were in their first year or two and where they were in years 5 and 6, Slade was really running the day-to-day parts of our department. Really oversaw all of our external areas, but he did a lot of the internal things and football scheduling and working with third party vendors, especially in MMR rights and those kinds of things. And so, from an expertise standpoint, ability to understand how revenue impacts your ability to grow, we're generating 62 or 3% of our budget through our own revenues, through annual fund and ticket sales and corporate sponsorships. And that's a really high level at our level, and frankly, the group of five or group of six. And so, I think the things that he built over time, and then he's got natural leadership skills. I would say for all three of them, they invest in others, so they're able to handle their job, and then they're able to support the people that work with them, and manage big ideas, creativity. How do we solve these problems today while staying true to our values? And Slade did that extremely well. I'm impressed with Ohio University. A lot of times we're either trying to get a certain person from a certain designation, or we want to win a press conference, or whatever those things are. And in their case, I mean, they came to a deputy AD at an FCS school because they understood the things that we've done in football, the things that we've had success across the board, our ability to generate our own revenue from a MAC perspective. I went to Bowling Green, so I understand the MAC extremely well. And so when you think about what they were looking to hire, Slade checked all those boxes. And I give him a lot of credit for coming and finding him, because he didn't apply. They reached out, and I think they reached out to the perfect person for them.
Well, what's interesting, so I keep a D1 hiring trends tracker on my website because I'm a nerd and I have everything since 2020. And listen to this stat about FBS group of five schools. So there's been 46 AD hires since 2020. Only seven were people from FCS, and I believe six of those were sitting ADs. So that shows you how rare it is for an FCS person to go take a group of five AD job. Now it's been a little bit more in the last year and a half. There's been five of the 20 hires. So it's pretty rare that they're even looking at an FCS school. But you're right. It's more about institutional fit. So kudos to them. I did find that interesting when I went back to look like, oh, I didn't think they'd go for an FCS AD. So that was interesting. And then Leon at Montana State. What was and how long? I don't know how long he's been there now, but kind of if you can, talk about what made him ready for that position too. Obviously, they have a really good athletic department as well.
Yeah, I mean he's in year 10, and I had worked with him in Northern Iowa, and then had a chance to hire him here at SDSU. So it's been fun to just see his growth over the years. And Leon, like Slade and Nathan, great personality, has a great energy about him. All three of them are highly positive. In today's world, you got to work around a lot of the things that we're dealing with, and the issues that we have, and maintain a positive approach. And being able to do that, being able to invest in others along the way. Leon was fantastic with that. And I think for me and him, our experience at Northern Iowa was at a time we made our first NCAA tournament. We grew. We had football success. The department was growing. We did some facility projects. And then we were able to carry that over to South Dakota State, who was transitioning from Division II to Division I. And so many of those lessons that you and I applied here. And I think we refined them. We had probably a bigger upside just in terms of being a land grant school and the biggest organization in terms of sports in the state of South Dakota. There's some scale things there that are just different. But Leon was able to really take that experience, and that's really what Montana State needed. They were probably farther ahead than us when we were transitioning to when he took them over. But he applied a lot of the things that he learned at UNI and certainly at South Dakota State. And he's done an amazing job with facility development, certainly the success of their football program. But I think all of us really care about broad-based success. We want all our programs to do well. And having that understanding in today's world, it's getting harder. That's shrinking. It's harder to have broad-based success. And so I think Leon just has all of those characteristics, was really seasoned, again, turned down an opportunity or two, and ended up getting the right one for him. And he's made it a great place.
Well, I imagine it's getting really you might be getting sick of having to hire people to be on your team if you just keep putting out athletic directors. I mean, as are you getting kind of the? I hope this doesn't just flood your inbox with resumes of people now that you're kind of creating. I'm bringing attention to this path you've of opportunities you've created. Is it kind of easier you think to help you try and find a good number two, number three person to run the department once these people do leave?
Yeah, I think first off, you're always looking to add a few duties to your current staff because that
Hmm.
keeps them engaged and growing, and you want them to stay. And where appropriate, you want to elevate if you can and develop that from within. But it's never bad. I think people have figured out South Dakota State, and certainly you can look at national championships or being on college game day or getting a chance to play in the Las Vegas Classic here in a few years against Montana in football. Success in men's and women's basketball. I think our brand, you recognize the Jackrabbit. I think it's unique, and I think people know that. But I think people are starting to understand who we are too, and how we go about doing things. And it's about a connected experience. The world's very transactional in many ways, not just in athletics, all over the place. We have a very connected, certainly a overall family feel, but a connected group that we're all trying to just make our university a great place, and a place that can be relevant in the next 25 years. And when you have 100 employees that are willing to do that, and you have 540 student athletes that believe the same things, there's power in that. And there are people that want to join those kinds of teams. So it's been awesome. I love having my inbox full. I love getting text messages or, hey, I'm interested. What are you doing with that position? I'd much rather have it that way than the other. And then really, I mean, geography wise, South Dakota is a different state.
A
And
beautiful
so,
state.
yeah,
I've been
it's
there a few
it's
times.
Yeah, it's awesome, but it's a little bit, you got to bring people here and you got to take the dot off the map. And I think when you see that and you see the $200 million of facilities that we've added in 10 years, if you see the spirit of this place, the pride that people have in our university, you want to be part of that. And so if that helps us attract other people, if we have the chance to help people grow and achieve their career aspirations, I'm all in for that. Those are success stories. Always hate to see him go. Love working with those guys, but I'm really proud of them, happy for them, and I'm cheering for them every day.
Except when you play them, right? You can still,
Oh,
you're playing you're playing Nathan this weekend, so you can kind of still show him who's boss, right?
yeah, there is a little bit of extra in those games, and they would say the same thing on the
Oh,
other
I
side,
bet.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It's funny is people that watch on video can see I have a world map behind me, but just on the other wall, I have a USA map so that I can like pinpoint where people are. It's funny because, geography, I should know it better, but, I know where my states are, but I can actually, when I'm bringing someone on, I can kind of trace back their history as they talk about, see where were they at, where do they come from. And I've been to 48 states, haven't been to Hawaii and Alaska yet. But growing up the son of a truck driver, you get to go a lot of places and different parts of the country. It's something that people have to consider about, do I really want to go there? Do they understand how beautiful it is there? Things like that. When I had John Cunningham on, now the Cincinnati athletic director, his background had him like all over the place, and he was really the first one to kind of point out that you also need to like realize where you're at and appreciate some of the beauty of the state you're in. I think he was talking about Idaho, um, but South Dakota is a beautiful state, but it is not for everyone. Like if you don't want to be in that area, that kind of leads me to my next question is because I had Tom Berman on years ago from Wyoming, and we talked about how fan support and that you really are like the only show, like the entertainment in town when you're the state school, and it helps when you have Josh Allen at quarterback, I'm sure. Now the Buffalo Bills star, but being the main show in town for when we talk about like sports and entertainment, does that translate into consistent fan support with South Dakota State? Just maybe talk about that community embrace of the Jackrabbits. Obviously, it helps when you're winning in football a lot, but just as far as like the athletic department as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's even when I interviewed here, obviously coming out of the transition D2 to D1, I was taking a serious look. I wanted to work in D1 and wanted to measure up where are we at. I think at the time trying to figure out what were the business elements that needed to grow. How do we raise more money? How do we get a facility master plan going? How do we do some of those things were the challenges. The spirit of the people, the quality of the education, the pride in the university were there. Those threads were there when I interviewed. And I would even say, from a sport perspective, certainly a basketball related school, the wintertime were the thing to do. And so,
Hmm.
to see football now grow over the years and take its rightful spot with the rest of our sports to create that broad based level of success. And when you look at, we won 8 championships last year. We had never done that before, and we've just continued to kind of build and grow. And we got the right wins maybe at the right time. We were putting a facility master plan together. Donors gave money, felt great about their investments. In fact, we probably blew away their expectations, which were already high. And you could just see that continue to swell. And so, what's been fun the last 4 or 5 years is just the growth and new people that have jumped on and supported the Jackrabbits. And yeah, being the land grant school and the biggest sports organization in the state, coming from Northern Iowa, obviously you had Iowa and Iowa State in that in the state of Iowa and working around that. And I knew it'd be an advantage to be here. I didn't realize actually how big of an advantage that is because you're connected to every corner of the state. You have graduates in every corner of the state. You have students that come from every corner of the state. And then as we've grown, we're from a regional perspective, we're now really strong in our region. And certainly in some of our sports and our academic programs and other things, we're competing at the national level. And so that's just continued to grow. Yes, winning absolutely helps, but we average 2,000 fans at our volleyball matches. We
Wow.
average 2,000 at wrestling. So and men's and women's basketball are up there. Football, we've sold out every game this year. So it is fans are showing up. They're proud. They're in. They're part of this. They're what's making us successful, and they feel part of that too.
That's awesome. And you are right. It is warmer in gyms in the winter. So basketball, volleyball, and wrestling, wrestling or volleyball towards the end of the season maybe gets a push of cold air bringing people in. But no, that's awesome. I mean, to have that many people show up to wrestling and volleyball consistently is I was not aware of that. Um, the other thing, just kind of curious is does college athletics today feel like the same to your fans, or is like all the noise of all the changes, has it really affected their fandom? I mean we talk about donor fatigue a lot on this show. So maybe that's happened with the changes to college athletics, but I mean, do you get the sense that things have really changed from their either viewership or understanding of college athletics, or do they still kind of feel the same affection for the Jackrabbits?
I would say there's two parts to this. The first one was the build over the last decade and just that growth. And when you look at ticket sales, season ticket sales, when you look at corporate sponsorships, and every year each of those categories have grown. Annual fund Jackrabbit Club donations. Our auction raised $2.55 million last year in a one-day auction. And so when you think about the growth in each of those, and we literally have set a record in all of those financial categories, our fans are supporting where we're at in college athletics today. And that is still having a degree being a primary purpose of what we do, and that our student athletes can do it in any major that they want to, and we're going to support that. And then at the same time, we want to compete at the highest level. We need to build the right facilities, and they've been able to stretch that and understand that we've stayed true to that from the transition to COVID to what's happening in higher education and college athletics today. And all those challenges do start to stress a little bit. Do you chase this? Do you move to this? What does the term modernization mean? I think for our fans, they have great trust in what we do, and that we're always going to keep those core values, that we invest in others, that we're proud to be part of something bigger than ourselves, those kinds of concepts. If you keep those, they've been doubling down on their support with us because it's going a little bit against the flow. Um, are there things out there with NIL and the house settlement and some of those bigger terms? And they certainly have their questions. They're asking, they're trying to figure out how to be engaged, but they're going to be engaged around the shared values that we have. And because we've been able to keep that, I don't think there's been any issue with our fans feeling like it's still college athletics and the way we do it here.
That's great. Does that mean that there's also maybe not a sense of pressure or rumors to try and join the FBS ranks? Because, I think every year someone puts out an article about maybe North Dakota State should join an FBS. But, with your success and the growth of South Dakota State, is that something that, ever creeps up into rumors that make it to you?
I mean, I think, look, you got to separate out. Fans are having a good time talking about all these things, and that's great. They should. Certainly, as you had realignment, and it's ramped up in the last 15 years, but the realignment started back in the 80s. We've always had it. So I think it's my take, and having been in the Missouri Valley Conference for 10 years at Northern Iowa, I worked at Villanova before that. I worked at Syracuse a little bit, and then got my master's at Ohio State. I've seen so many different schools, teacher colleges, small Catholic institutions, big state schools, and land grants. And I think being able to understand all those things, and then how do you position yourself for where you're at. And my deal is we have to be the best version of us along the way. So hopefully you have some choice as realignment happens. And I really came in here trying to build a valley-like model, because most schools in the valley are not only good, they weren't only good at football, they were good in the basketballs, baseball, softball, volleyball was outstanding. And so how do you have broad-based success? And I felt like if we could do that here, we would not only would we solidify ourselves in our current conference, which is really important to do, but that if we could compete at that level, then we're regionally competitive and have a chance to get in the national tournaments and make a little noise. And so I've never deviated from that as those things come up. I've tried to stay away from moving up or down or sideways. Who knows what that means? I want to play against really good like competition. And I want our student athletes to experience the chance to go to championships and to do those things. And that's where, as sports, we need to keep our focus is around how do we play those schools. And the setup right now with the conference structure and other things creates some challenges. Geography, we've now spread it all over the place. How do we bring those back to where our fans want to show up to see us play North Dakota State, but our fans also want to see us play Oral Roberts in basketball or UNI in football, and so it's grown. Like, our fans get who our competition is, but I think that's one thing in athletics we have to keep kind of working at.
Yeah, and from working in the FCS in the Missouri Valley and Missouri Valley Football Conference, I will say, unlike the Sacramento State president, I do not see FCS as JV. I see it as awesome competition, especially anyone that has not watched Missouri Valley Football Conference action. You're missing out. And then I was at Indiana State, when we went to the NIT championship and lost on a three-pointer that rimmed out at the buzzer. And yes, we probably should have been in March Madness in the regular tournament as a two bid league. I know you guys in basketball aren't in the Missouri Valley, but it was just kind of that one hurts the heart still as I sat there and watched that one with knowing all the guys so well on the court. I felt so bad for them. Okay, so I want to ask about FCS playoffs, though. So a cool story about the FCS playoffs. I love it, and there's kind of a personal attachment to it. We only went one time whenever I worked at Indiana State in my first stint there, and we lost in the first round. But it really rallied campus because Indiana State historically has not, gone there that often. So that was a cool experience. But my son was born January 8th, 2016, my oldest, and so in the hospital, it's my first child. And so I'm just, rocking him in the chair at the hospital, and we're watching. I see the FCS championships on, the national championship, or it might have been the Final Four. But either way, I was watching that, and I was just like, it was cool because it's like, it's the first moment I'm watching sports with my kid, even though he has no idea what's going on. And so I tell him that every year when the championship's on, and he wants to watch the national championship with me. And so he's 9 now, and so it's kind of cool. And I think I could guess who won that year, but I'm not going to say it. It wasn't the year South Dakota State won, but you guys have won some. So, but it's a really cool moment. And so, I think what a lot of people, there's obviously expansion of the CFP, and now people are already wanting it to expand more. And, some, I don't know if it's mostly media driven. I'm sure some of them get turned into proposals that the ADs and presidents will see at some point. There's this talk, I think, a few weeks ago about what would it look like if it was 24 people, and everyone thought that's crazy. I'm like, it's not crazy. The FCS does it, and the FCS playoffs maybe speak to the for those that listen to this, maybe they're not even aware of what the structure is like of the FCS playoffs. So can you maybe just like give them a 101 of the FCS playoffs and what makes it so great in your opinion?
Yeah, no, and I think it's to your previous question, a little bit of a defining deal because the playoff system versus some of the bowl opportunities, I would say and argue that our student athletes in the FCS level, when you get a chance to make those playoffs and then frankly to make a run and to have a realistic chance at a national championship, I think in the whole NCAA structure, if you were to talk to our student athletes and frankly our fans that follow along, it's one of the best, if not the best, championship experiences. And so it's really set up by automatic bids from your conferences, and then you've got a bunch of at-large bids starting play right after Thanksgiving. And then you'll walk yourself into kind of top 8 seeds. You'll be down to 16 in the second week, and then you just work your way down to the final 2 before Christmas gets settled, and then we play in a national championship. that's been in Frisco, Texas. Kind of historically, it was Chattanooga, Tennessee before that, and now we're heading to Nashville the next 2 years. And so I think just overall, those opportunities, the style and level of FCS football is and championship, though all those teams are good, and it's great football. It's fun to watch. As you were talking about, Tom Berman and Josh Allen this last weekend for us, we had Dallas Goedert and Tucker Kraft both scored 2 touchdowns apiece. Had Isaiah Stallbird, and we had Christian Rosenboom at 12 tackles with the Panthers. Mason McCormick has started every game as 2 years with the Steelers on the line. And then we had Blake Trinan is pitching with the Dodgers right now in the World Series. So you talk about our level and you talk about the chance to chase dreams and you talk about those opportunities through those playoff experiences. Those folks are really connected with our university and our programs because they had a chance to really experience some of the greatest things about sport. And I think that's what FCS is about.
Yeah, I had no idea Tucker Kraft. I mean, because he is, taking over. I mean, he took over that game, but he's just been doing it like crazy. And then that reminds me, I just had to give a shout out to the whoever the umpire was in game three of the World Series that saw like 600 and something pitches. I saw that stat this morning. I was like, all I could think about is I would need eye drops. I'd be like, my eyes would be so red, and there's no way he goes to sleep the next like 2 or 3 nights and not feel like a ball's coming at him down the middle because that is a lot of baseballs to see. But no, I did not realize how much success. I mean, you guys are kind of all over the place. Jackrabbits bouncing everywhere. That's really cool. Uh, yeah, and yeah, I agree. I mean, I also worked in D2 for 3.5 years, and we were dominant in football at University of Indianapolis. They also had that same similar playoff model, but I think FCS it does get more of that national attention, and you never know. Like a lot of times, yes, is one team or two teams, and they're in the Dakotas or the Montanas. But we talked about before recording, it really is kind of getting a little bit more parity and spread out about who's going to get hot. That's the cool thing about the playoff. If you get in as an at large, you're in. I mean, you can make a run. Versus, if we just do bowl games, I think it's also bowls hard to get people up for a bowl game. It's like, oh, one more bowl. It's a cool experience for the student athletes. They go somewhere, they get a gift bag, things like that. But there's something about that competition once you get in the playoffs, and the FCS, the conference you're all play football, and it is a grind. I mean, you're ready to go by the time. It reminds me of like high school playoffs here in Indiana. Everybody gets in, so some of the better teams they schedule very tough competition every year, and then all of a sudden it's almost easy for them in the playoffs because everybody they played during the regular season. So it's kind of that NFL model where they're going to beat each other up a little bit, and you might not have a perfect record, but you're going to be right there. And I know South Dakota State, looking for a rematch, hopefully in the playoffs, and I'll be excited to watch that. All
Yeah,
right,
no,
so
I think you're spot on. Listen, when you have a game that's to advance, it's different than a bowl game is going to be the end of your season. Either way, you win or you lose, that's the end of your season. And for us, when you have the pressure and the excitement about, hey, we got to win to continue to go on, I think that adds to the playoff system.
so I've got to kind of as we kind of near the end, I've got to pulling in some tactical strategies for the people. I don't ask too difficult questions, but what I do like to pull out is things that, current administrators can pull from. And someone like you that have been in the chair for a long time, just kind of curious about head coach hires. So what is your approach to a head coach hire? It might change based on the sport, but walk me through what you do from step A to step Z as far as are you always have a list on you? Are you always kind of paying attention to the climate? You probably have a feel for when your either coach might be moving on or a coach may be retiring. So, what is just your kind of take it however you want of a case study or something of what you would be you doing A through Z?
Yeah, well, I think you called out a lot of different scenarios that do require different approaches, and so, but from a general sense, I think the first thing is I spend a lot of time honestly trying to develop internal talent. I spend time. I've got assistant coaches that I'm mentoring right now, along with our head coach. One because if they are growing and have a chance, and maybe it's not here, but somewhere else, we owe them the opportunity to get them prepared. And I want to put good people out in this business. But we want to have that. I think recognizing the world has changed. 10 years ago, I probably had a couple weeks to put out feelers and find a coach, bring in, interview several. My roster would stay solid, and then we could hire somebody and manage it forward. And now it's to a point where if there's even a rumor that your coach is leaving, the churn starts, and the roster piece and student athletes getting contacted and those things, you're trying to really shrink those gaps. So how do you do that today in where you really need to work in a 1 or 2 or 3 day window, not weeks? And I think it's still being able to cover those things that are important. So it's all the pre-work. You have to think about that. Do I have people that I'm interested in talking to, a list in the pocket, whatever you want to call it? Yeah, I definitely do. At the same time, the reason that's important is you're going to get flooded with text messages and phone calls and emails with every other candidate. So how can you make sure you have a few that you really want to have in, and then you got to sift through some of those others that come up so you don't miss anything. I think for me, Travis, it's I work off of, I want someone with integrity. I want someone that's proud to be part of something bigger than themselves, that wants to invest in others, and that is passionate about a student athlete's experience. I start with that, and then we work into recruiting and X's and O's. What's your vision? What do you think in terms of what we can do at South Dakota State? And ultimately, what assistants are you bringing along? How have you thought about that? Because it's really about the staff. It's not just the head coach. And so I try to stay true to that. Being part of a Board of Regents system and a state school, there are processes we have to follow. So we front load a lot of that if we have any inkling that something's coming up or there's even a coach interviewing. I'm working with our president and working with our Board of Regents to have all that stuff kind of taken care of, ready to go, pre-approved in a sense that if we get to that spot, we can move quick. Great example was our football coach left on December 28th this last year. That's between Christmas and New Year's. That's no student athletes are here. It was a Saturday night. And you're trying to move this where you're trying to connect with people, you're trying to manage processes, you need to get a contract together, and you don't have people necessarily around. You better have your stuff ready to go ahead of time. So a lot of pre-prep, and then staying true to those things that I value, whether it's a coach, whether it's a staff member. Frankly, when we bring in student athletes, we want people that share a lot of the same values that we do.
Yeah, and it's awesome that you ended up. So I saw that you had the coaching change, and you were able to get a successful coach that is also a former Jackrabbit, right? And so that, I mean, that's always good when you produce talent, and then I think he had also been an assistant coach there, and then he went on to other positions, and then he gets to come back, and so it's got to feel good to know you. It seems like you have the right person, and it's someone that knows that culture too. Probably makes it a little bit easier when you get that that late December notification that your coach is leaving, right?
Yeah, for sure. We had that. We hired our men's basketball coach Eric Henderson went to Drake, and we promoted Brian Peterson. So we had kind of some thoughts, or were able to do that from an internal perspective, and then obviously with Slade leaving in September, we're working through that process right now. So it's you just have to be prepared. It's going to be there. We've been fortunate to keep coaches longer here, and had success with that. But the reality is, you're going to go through those coaching changes, and you need to be pre-prepared to handle them.
I wanted to jump in with Justin Sell, just talking about that coaching question and giving his answer. Very detailed response. And while it's fresh on your mind, I want to tell you about AD Vantage. They are a sponsor of Higher Ed Athletics. Go to athleticdirectorvantage.com. You'll see why this is such a good program to help you evaluate your head coaching candidate hires. I think it's incredibly helpful for any athletic director for any sport. You're going to have your high profile ones that make it in the coaching carousel news, but Athletic Director Advantage, they really take great data, and then they allow you to filter it. And I've been able to use it as a kind of a end user, imagining like I'm an athletic director. I'll have a video posted soon on what you can get. But whenever I do, make sure you check that video out because it is incredible and they can put this report together incredibly quickly. And it's basically like an internal website that you can see and you can mess around with all these filters and find things that are important to you as an athletic director or sport administrator of who you're trying to hire, whether it's an opening or just an anticipated opening. Like Justin said, you have to anticipate these things when they come down the road before it even gets to that point, especially if you're at a public state school with a system and a governance process. Take a look at athleticdirectorvantage.com.
Yeah. Well, last kind of set of questions to talk about back to the AD position. We talked about Nathan, Leon, and Slade. I have to reshape this question because a lot of times people are saying the same answer, and the reason I'll say what the obvious answer is. So I always ask, advice on what you would tell someone that's, aspiring AD, and the most obvious answer that I always get, do the job well that you're in now. And I get that. I think everybody that listens to that knows that that is what they're supposed to do. So I'm kind of reframing this question to think about, what skills or future problems they need to be ready to have. Or you can go with, okay, whenever you know that you're going to be interviewing for a job, I mean, how do you recommend people prepare for that interview? It could be their AD binder. It could be, what is your philosophy on hiring coaches? Things like that. What do they need to kind of like maybe tighten up going into a search like that once they found a good fit and they're kind of going through that process?
Yeah, I think you said it right. First, is it a job that is within your capabilities, and that even can be stretched capabilities. Like all of us have to grow into these things. So what level are you looking at? Each one, there's some probably micro differences that you're going to deal with if you're talking about a Power Four, a Group of Six, an FCS, a one AAA, a Division Two. There are different probably requirements that you need. I would spin the more general. So your normal answer is for me. There's a couple things that are maybe overlooked sometimes as you're growing in your career. So yeah, we all have to do our job well. You have to do your job well when you get the new one. So that goes without saying. But I think the having a deep understanding of higher education right now is as important as the issues we're dealing with within athletics. And the reason I say that, then pending what your philosophy is, how you want to connect things, where you want to work, I think those things matter. Can you talk to a donor base? Can you bring a vision? Can you connect in the things that make them love South Dakota State or want to help support us? And to be able to pull in the deep understanding of higher ed and what are the things we're dealing with enrollment management? What does our president need us to do? How do we garner additional support at the legislative level? Like, I think people are just working in their jobs and like doing what they're supposed to do without stepping back and saying, okay, how do I fit into the bigger picture? And the bigger picture really is we are tied to higher education. In that, to me, the other piece is taking an infinite game approach. Everything I'm doing today is going to fit in a week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, or 10 years from now. Like you can't just tackle, you're trying to win today, and that's really important. We're trying to win another game Saturday. Very important. But what are the things that are the threads that we're trying to also learn to help us build to win the next week into the playoffs and for the next 10 years? And we've got an approach right now in athletics that is like literally, I'm going to throw it together and see if I can just win this year. And so the ability to think about development and think about growth and be patient in those processes to me is something that I think if you come back to and you want long-term success, those are the underpinnings that I think you have to have. And then for us in college athletics, there are some things that I think are worth fighting for. and that is students getting a degree in anything they want, supporting their growth, things around the college experience that we've done for 100 years that are still why it's the college experience. And then being able to say, what are those things we're trying to modernize? So the second part of your kind of question, or where you're leading, is the skill sets and understanding of being comfortable with the unknown, building skills that can handle today. I think today, Travis, the challenge for all of us, and especially young people that are getting into our business, there is tremendous volume. And that volume is coming from all over the place. It's coming from higher education. It's coming from college athletics. It's coming from politics. You pick whatever category. And we're trying to solve the most complex issues we've ever had to solve. And so you're trying to manage through how do you get through those things? How do you support folks and allowing them to grow, to see that and develop those skill sets? None of us know exactly where this is going to go. None of us can paint that exact picture. But how can you kind of build that capacity to handle the volume, to help you step back and go, how do I fit into this thing, whatever role I am in the department? And then how does that fit into my university? Those are the things that will help you as a group, when you come together, grow. And then ultimately, you have to hire the right people. That is the most, or for me, I meet with all our recruits because we're bringing in people into our family, and that's really important. And then be intentional about the time you spend in helping them grow, helping them learn, identifying who's the next leader, who has leadership characteristics. For many of us, if I said, Travis, look, looks like you've got some fantastic leadership characteristics. I think you should look at being able to do some of these things. You feel great about it, right? Like, we need to tell people that. We need to help encourage that. You got to plant some seeds. And so if you're an aspiring leader, how do you manage all the stuff? Because it will bury you if you can't manage it, while you're investing in other people and doing those things for them. That's the difficulty in leadership today, in my opinion. So I'm a big believer in building capacity. So people that say you got to be good at your job, well, you do. I think people leave their jobs too soon. It's okay to do one thing 10 times or 40 times or 100 times, because you get way better. You start to understand where this is going. You start to be able to predict those things. You can handle them kind of in your sleep. And so being able to stay with that, it's like shooting free throws. If I shoot 10 or 100 or 1,000, I'm probably going to be a better free throw shooter if I shoot 1,000. That stuff still applies as you're trying to grow.
I think I might still be a lousy free throw shooter after all that, but that is some great advice that I'll have. I might have to clip that and send it out for whoever is interviewing to replace Slade, so that they can get that advice and know what they're getting into, because it might make them go a little harder in that interview to impress you if you haven't hired anyone yet. So I appreciate that. I want to end it with a reaction to some stats from my shameless plug D1 AD hiring trends and tracker. So I'm looking at the FCS numbers. It is by far the most of the subdivisions that have hired ADs since 2020. There's been 96 hires since 2020 for ADs in FCS. There's 5 openings right now. I anticipate 5 openings. 48 of the AD hires were from other FCS schools. 15 were from power schools. 13 from group of 5 schools. 17 were sitting ADs. 33 were deputy ADs, and 31 were internal promotions. 17 were female hires. So does that number 96 seem high for like just I basically did 2020 because of COVID. It was shortly into that where we started seeing that, but that is a lot of internal promotions. So I think that's a good thing, because it goes back to, I think non-football D1 has even more internal promotions, but from me, that seems like a lot of hires, but it also seems like really hiring from within. And, a lot of that could be relative to retirements, coming out of COVID. But what do you think about those numbers, putting you on the spot, just have an instant reaction?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a network of quite a few ADs that I talk to all the time that have been in their jobs at least 10 years. Many of them, I'm in year 17 at SDSU, and the fun part is like we haven't settled. Like we still have some big things to get out there and do. And we get a chance, I often say, to have kind of the Big Ten or Big 12 mentality with a mom and pop feel. Like we get a really unique kind of blend of awesome growth and yet really connected experiences. I think what it also says is FCS ADs are good hires, and they're good hires because we literally have to do everything. You can't throw money at your problems. You have to be creative. You have to find ways to generate more. You have to find ways to be competitive. You have to find ways to hire because there is a pecking order. Yeah, some days you sit here and go, would it be nice to have a bucket under my desk that I could retain every coach that wants to leave and pay them the amount that they're going to get? But that's not the reality. So you're kind of always having folks that are in a spot to do great and move up. So how do you foster that? So those numbers tell me that FCS and our level and the job skills and the leadership opportunities that we're getting are very applicable in hiring at another level. And I think that's actually a positive. The internal promotions, I think that's a great way to go. There's a lot of younger professionals or people that are up and comers that deserve that opportunity and can do great work. You got to go find them, or you've got to help develop them.
And for those that are also curious, but since I also track 24 to 25, so far there's been 29 FCS AD hires since the start of 2024. Five were females, 11 were internal promotions, 18 of the 29 were from fellow FCS schools, six from power schools, three from group of five. Five were sitting ADs, 13 were deputy ADs, and five were senior associate ADs. So if anyone is interested in for all the subdivisions and see the tracker, go to higheredathletics.com, D1 AD hiring trends and tracker. It's a fun thing that I just keep doing every time I see the breaking news. So Justin, thanks so much for taking, an hour with me to talk through all this stuff. Nathan told me I'd enjoy the conversation and I'd learn, and I think I definitely did. And I'll be a Jackrabbit fan even more now here in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time today, and appreciate the work you're doing. Got a lot of good people that are sharing great things about our business. It's a great business. We have to fight to keep it a great one, and we are challenged. But I think there's a positive light at the end of all of this if we stick together. And you're doing great work on that behalf.
Thank you.